Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste, my dear friends. Today I am giving you a very good video on Swami Ramtiratha, the son of self. Let there be peace and love among all beings of the universe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. It was a lecture given on January 12, 1903 at the Golden Gate Hall in San Francisco. The immutable in the form of ladies and gentlemen. The subject of discourse tonight is the immutable in the changeable. Before beginning, a few words will be spoken in answer to a question repeatedly put to Rama. What is the significance of the color you wear? Why do Buddhists wear yellow clothes and Vedantin sadhus or Swamis wear flame-colored clothes? You know, every religion has got three aspects. Every religion has got its philosophy, its mythology, and its ritual. No religion without a philosophy can stand. In order that it may appeal to the learned, the wise, the reasoning class of people, it ought to have a philosophy, and in order that it may recommend itself to the people of sentimental emotions of emotional nature, it ought to have a mythology, and in order that it may appeal to the common folk, it ought to have a ritual. The color of the clothes has something to do with the ritual of the Vedantic religion. Why do the Christians wear the cross? That is the ritual. Why do the Christians put the cross at the top of their churches? That is the ritual. The Roman Catholics have an elaborate ritual. The Protestants have very little of it, but still they have a ritual. They also cannot do without it. So these colors are the ritual of the Vedantic religion. The red color, the flame color, has the same meaning to the Hindu as the cross to the Christian. What does the cross imply? It is a remembrance of the death of Christ, the love of Christ. Christ suffered his body to be crucified for the sake of the people. That is the meaning of the cross which the Christian wear. If you ask a Hindu to explain to you the meaning of the cross, he will explain it to you differently. He will say the teaching of Christ is take up the cross, take your cross and follow me. He does not say take up my cross. In the Bible, in the New Testament, Saint Paul or Christ had not to ask you to take up the cross of Christ, but they say take up your cross. That is the exact word. Take up your cross, and the meaning of that is crucify your flesh, crucify your carnality, your little self, crucify your own ego. That is the meaning of it. So the cross ought to be symbol of crucifying our selfish interest, our little ego, our little egotistical selfish ego. That is the meaning of the cross. Wearing the cross, whether you take it in this sense or some other sense, it depends on your will, but Vedanta always recommends you to take the cross in that sense, and in this sense does a Buddhist wear yellow clothes. Yellow is in India at least the color of the dead. The dead carcass has got a yellow color. The yellow robe or the yellow costume implies that the man who puts on these yellow clothes has crucified his body, has altogether discarded his flesh, risen above carnality, is beyond all selfish motives. Just as when the Roman Catholics have to ordain a monk, they put him in a coffin and read over his head the chapter from Job. They read over him the songs and psalms and sermons which are usually read over the dead, and that man being placed in a coffin is made to believe and realize that he is dead to all temptations, to all passions, dead to all worldly desires. The Buddhists have to wear yellow clothes, which mean that the man has so more to do anything with worldly desires, with selfish aims and objects, is dead to the world as it were, and the flame color of the Vedantins mean the color of fire. This color indicating the dress of the speaker. Rama cannot represent exactly the color of fire. The color of these clothes put this color was about the nearest color to the color of fire that could be had in America. In India we have a color which is exactly the color of the fire. When an Indian monk is sitting somewhere from some distance, you cannot recognize whether it is a man or a heap of fire. This color stands for the color of fire, and this means that the man has cremated his body. You know, in India we do not bury the dead, we cremate them, we burn them. So this red color implies that the man who has worn these clothes has sacrificed his body, has placed his body on the altar of truth. All the worldly desires burnt. All the worldly desires, all the worldly ambitions, all the worldly hungering and hankerings are consigned to the flames. The color of the cross is also red. The blood of Christ is also red. Christians also want something red. This is also red, and it has the double meaning of being blood as well as fire, but it has another significance too. Yellow also could express the idea of the death of the body, of the death of the carnality, but Vedantis do not wear yellow robes, they wear red robes of the color of fire. That means that it is death from one standpoint and life from another. You know, fire has life, fire sustains life, fire has energy, fire has power. The red robes imply that all the lower desires, all the selfish propensities, all the little ambitions have been consigned to fire, have been put to death. But on the other hand, there has sprung out of them life, fire, energy, power. That red robe has a double meaning. It has the meaning of the death of carnality and also the meaning of the life of the spirit. Be not afraid. Be not afraid. Vedanta preaches the baptism of fire instead of the baptism of water. It preaches the baptism of flame, the baptism of power, energy. Oh, be not afraid that this is fire and it will consume us. You read the Bible too. He who would save his life must lose it. Lose this power, life, and you will save the real life. That is the principle. Oh, people in this world, what a great havoc do they make of their lives. Their worldly life, they make a life of imprisonment, a life of death, a life of hell. You will excuse Rama, that is the truth. On their breast, on their bosoms lies the mighty Himalayas of grief and anxiety, a mighty mountain of grief and anxiety. We should not say Himalayas. The Himalayas is all power and grandeur. We will say a mighty mountain of grief and anxiety. They keep themselves like a pendulum, always oscillating between a tear and a smile, always baffled by the frowns and favors of somebody or by the threats and promises of somebody else. By their imagination, they always create around themselves a prison, a dungeon, a hell. Vedanta requires you to get rid of this lower nature, this ignorance. Burn this ignorance, burn this lower egoism, burn this lower selfish nature which makes a hell of your body, and let in the fire of knowledge. Knowledge is always represented as fire by the Hindus. Let in the knowledge of fire, and let all this chaff and all this dirt and dust be consumed. Come out as all ablaze, as all fire, heavenly fire. That is the meaning of the color. Somebody asked Rama, why do you attract attention? Well, Rama told him, brother, please see yourself if there be any harm in these clothes. He said he could not find any harm in them, but that others did. But you are not responsible for the ignorance of others. Be mindful of your own intellect and brain. Find out any fault with these clothes if you have to find. And if others find fault, you are not responsible for that. The greatest sadhu, the greatest Indian monk, the greatest Swami in this world is the sun, the rising sun. The rising sun comes to you every day, dressed in the apparel, in the costume of a Vedantic monk. In tonight's discourse, this sun will represent to you the immutable with reference to the changeable bodies. We shall take the sun, the Swami, the sadhu, the red apparelled sun, symbol of the true Atma and real self, which is unchangeable, which is immutable, the same today, yesterday and forever. With reference to the sun, we shall point out the changeable, the variable things which stand for the changeable bodies in man. Man has got the changeable things in him, and there is in man the immutable, the unchangeable and eternal real Atma. The real Atma is like the sun, and the changeable elements are the three bodies, the gross body, the subtle body and the seed body. These are names that Rama gives to these bodies. In Sanskrit they are Sthula, Sukshma and Karana Srira, and Rama translates them as the gross body, the subtle body and seed body. These three bodies, the seed body, the subtle body and the gross body, are the changeable elements. These are not the self but the non-self. These are variable, fickle. These are not yourself. Yourself is the immutable, the unchangeable. This is to be shown. In order to give you a clear idea of three bodies and the true Atma, we shall resort to an illustration. You will kindly attend very carefully. Tonight there will be talked to you no logic, no great argumentation. Tonight the proposition of man as proved by the Hindus will be made clear to you. It will be clearly enunciated so that you may at once comprehend it, and afterwards, if time be, we shall enter into philosophy and reason out every side of the question. You know, before bringing out logic to bear upon a theme, we ought to understand what the proposition is. So tonight, the understanding of the proposition, there will be as it were a proof by themselves, as Pope puts it. Virtue is a fairy of such beauteous mien as to be loved needs only to be seen. So the truth has such a glorious beauty that in order that it may enter deep into your hearts, it is necessary only to see it clearly. The sun requires no other proof of its existence. To see the sun is to prove the sun. Everything that be is seen in some outside light, but light itself does not require some other light in order that it may be visible. Tonight, the proposition is simply to be laid before you without any arguments and without any logic so called. Now we come to the illustration. You will kindly take yourself with Rama to the Himalayas glaciers. There we see all dazzling scenes, diamond mountains, all white, an ocean of white glaciers, so dazzling, so sparkling, so beautiful, splendid, inspiring. There we find no vegetation, no animal life, no man, no woman. There is upon these glaciers to be seen one source of life, the sun, the glorious orb that shines upon these fairy scenes. Oh, what a splendid sight! Sometimes the light of the sun, sifted through the clouds, falls upon the land, makes the whole landscape blaze up in the color of fire, makes the whole scene assume the Swami's garb, converts the whole scene into a sadhu, an Indian monk. After a while, the whole scene becomes yellow, etc. But there is one thing, and one thing only on the scene, nothing else. That is the sun. Now you observe that in these glaciers there are the greatest rivers of Hindustan concealed latent. All the big rivers of India emanate and flow out from these glaciers. Here in these glaciers is the source or the seed body of the river. You will kindly come down with Rama to the second stage of the river life. Here we come to another phase. We come now to another kind of sights and landscapes. We are still in the mountains, but not at the snow-capped summits. Lower down we are. Here for miles and miles, for dozens and scores of miles, we have magnificent roses covering every spot, and the whole air fragrant, redolent with the sweet, delicious scene of the roses. Here we have beautiful nightingales and other birds singing, indicating valentines all the year round. Here we have magnificent warblers filling the air with their sweet notes, and also we find among us the magnificent, beautiful, charming trees, the most attractive Ganga or some other stream treading its winding course in a zigzag way, playing, frisking about in the mountains. Oh, beautiful brooks, beautiful rivulets we find here. Here in these beautiful brooklets are the shadows of the trees on the bank reflected, and these streamlets. Brooklets are going about in a most charming, in a most playing way, now taking this trend and now that trend, going around and around, turning this way and that way, and singing all along. Flow these rivers, brooklets, and rivulets. What is this? This is the second stage of river's life. Here the river is in its subtle body. This rivulet or brooklet form the river in the subtle body of the river. So to say, this subtle body emanated from the seed body of the river. It came from the seed body of the river. Upon the seed body of the river was the sun shining, and through the action of the sun's heat and light upon the seed body of the river came out the subtle body of the river. This is the subtle body. It is very fickle, vague, meandering, zigzag. It is now jumping down and taking long leaps in hot haste and in a great flurry. Then it subsides into a lake or a calm. It is very vague, fickle, changing. Let us descend a little to the plains. Now in the plains we have different scenes. The same water, the same river we saw present in the seed form upon the snow-capped glaciers, and which adopted a most fantastic and most poetic aspect in its subtle form lower down on the mountains. The same waters, the same river now become a muddy stream upon the plains. In the plains, the same river, the same Ganga becomes a mighty stream. It has undergone a great change. It has put on new clothing, new color. It does not keep its original transparency and its original limpidness. It becomes dirty, turbid, and it becomes changed in color, muddy it becomes, and at the same time it changes its speed. It becomes now slow, very slow, and on the other hand it becomes more useful now. Upon the surface of this mighty river float boats, float ships, traffic is carried on, people come and bathe, and the water of the great river now is utilized in canals and aqueducts for irrigating the lands and for fertilizing the country around. This third stage of the river's life is the gross body of the river. And what about the life of the river? What about the real motive power of the river? The real motive power of the river is the sun, the glorious orb. Now let us apply this illustration to man. Where are your three bodies, and how are they related to one another and to the real self, your true self, or the Atma? What are you in reality in your deep sleep state, where you are unconscious of everything else, where you know nothing about the world, where father is no father, mother is no mother, house is no house, and the world is no world? Where there is ignorance and nothing but ignorance, where there is a state of chaos, a state of death, a state of annihilation, so to say, a stage of nothingness. There Vedanta says, in that state which you have never examined, which most of you have never examined, in that state we have the seed body of man, lying prostrate and flat beneath the true self or Atma of man. There we have the true self, like the sun shining over the glaciers, man's life being compared to the river's life. You will kindly attend most carefully. Here is the something very subtle going to be stated. It was said the other day, but the occasion requires that it should be repeated. In your deep sleep state, this world is not present, nor it is present in the dreamland. There is only dreamlessness. When you wake up, you say that in that deep sleep state is present nothing, nothing, nothing. Vedanta says indeed in that deep sleep state is present nothing. But you know, as Hegel has clearly shown, the Hindus have anticipated Hegel, that German philosopher, and have proved that this nothing is something, that this nothing is also the seed body, this nothing which you describe in your wakeful state as nothing. This is the seed body, this is the glacier of your life, as the Bible puts it, that out of nothing was something created by God. So the Hindus have also shown that out of this seed body which you described as nothing, after waking up out of this seed body which you described as nothing, out of this seed body or nothing, there springs forth or comes out the whole world. If philosophers come out and say that out of nothing something can never come out, Vedanta says that this which we have called nothing is in reality not nothing. It is called nothing by you only when you wake up. You know, the same world we can interpret in any way we like. This is not in reality nothing. It is the seed body. This is like the glaciers. Now you will say, well, we have understood that out of that deep sleep which we described and nothing, something comes out, and that apparent nothing is the seed body. But realize the sun within, realize God within, realize Atma which creates out of this glacier of the seed body this whole universe. Realize that sun or God or Atma. You will ask what this means. Listen please. When you get up, you say, I slept so profoundly that I saw nothing in the dream. There we say, please write this statement on paper. Then Vedantins comes up and says that this statement is just like a statement made by a man who said that at the dead of night at such and such a place there was not a single being present. The judge told him to put that statement on paper, and he did that. The judge asked him if this statement was true. He said yes. Is this statement made on hearsay, or is it founded on your own evidence? Are you an eyewitness? He said, yes, I am. All right, then if you were an eyewitness, and if you wish us to understand that your statement is correct, that there was nobody present, then in order that your statement may be right, you at least must have been present on the scene. But if you were present on the scene, this statement is not literally true. Literally, the statement is not true, because you being a human being, you were present. At least one human being was present on the scene. Thus the statement that nobody was present, that there was not a single human being present on the scene, is false. That is a contradictory statement. In order that it may be true as you wish us to understand it to be true, it must be wrong. It must be wrong because at least one human being must have been present on the scene. Similarly, when we make this statement after waking up, oh sir, I slept profoundly and I enjoyed such deep slumbers and nothing was present on the scene. Rama says, sir, you were present. If you had been asleep, if you if your true self, the real Atma and the real Sun, the real Orb, the real God had been asleep, then who would have borne a witness to the nothingness of the deep sleep or chaos of the dream? As you bore witness to the nothingness of the deep sleep or chaos of the dream, you must have been present there. Thus, in your deep sleep state, Vedanta says that there are two things at least to be seen: the nothingness, which is like the glaciers or like the seed body, and the witness light, the sun, the glorious Atma, the resplendent self or God, which is witnessing all that and shining even upon the desolation of the deep sleep state. There, that true self is the sun immutable, and that nothingness of the deep sleep state is the seed body, which is changeable, mutable, alterable, and fickle. Why is it changeable and fickle? Because when you come down to the dreamland, when you fall down into the dreaming state, that nothingness is gone. That nothingness is no more. If that chaos or nothing of the deep sleep state had been your real self, it would have lasted forever, but it changes. When you descend into the dreamland, the very capability of changing implies that it is not real. That seed body is not real. You will be astonished. You will say how this phenomenal world of ours did emanate from that nothing. It is a fact. You have been thinking matters differently in Europe and America. You have been taking matters in a topsy-turvy state. Believe, Rama, this is a truth which must permeate every individual, which must enter the heart of each and all in this universe sooner or later. Here people are accustomed to take things from the bottom to the top. They want to make rivers flow uphill the unnatural course, and so you will be astonished at the statement just now made by Rama, that out of that nothingness of your deep sleep state comes out your dreamland experience. You will be astonished, but just examine, just reflect. Is not that the plan of nature? Where from did this earth of yours come? This earth of yours was once in the nebular state. All this was once in a state which had no form, which was akin to your deep sleep state. It was in the nebular state, it was in a chaotic state. Out of these chaotic states have sprung up by slow degrees your vegetable kingdom, animal kingdom, and man. Vedanta tells you that what you find in the whole of nature, what you find true from the physical standpoint, the same is true from the metaphysical standpoint. If this whole world springs from chaos or nothing, so to say, your dreamland and wakefulness state also sprang from that deep sleep state or chaotic state, the state of nothingness. Your wakeful and dreaming states sprang from that. Just so it is found in the life of every man. When a baby, he is in a state most resembling the state of nothingness, as it were. Out of that state, by slow degrees, he comes into the other state which you call higher, through higher and lower are relative though higher and lower are relative terms. What is the rule in the whole universe is the rule with the ordinary life of every man. Out of the deep sleep state springs this dreaming state. People want to explain the dreaming state as dependent on the wakeful state. You will be astonished when Vedanta puts matter to you in their true light and shows that all the European philosophers, all your Hegels and Kants cannot explain thoroughly the phenomenon of dreams. We have no time tonight to dwell upon the subject, but this will be proved to you either in a lecture or in a book form. We come to the dream state. In the dreamland, we come as it were from the glaciers to the lower mountains. You are still on the mountains asleep. Here, the subtle body, the dreaming self, finds itself in a fantastic land, in a poetic region. The dreaming self of yours is now a bird, is now a king. Immediately it becomes a beggar. It is now a man who has lost his way on the Himalayan mountains, and then it becomes the citizen of a big city like London. It is now in this city, and then in that city. How changeable! Just as the streams in the mountains are changeable, meandering, fickle, taking different turns every now and then, such is the state of your dreaming self. In your dreaming state, you are quick about everything, just as the streams are so quick then in the mountains. The rivulets, the brooklets are so quick and so rapid, so gushing and so playful. So is your dreaming self too playful and rapid. You live in a land of imagination. There the dead becomes alive, and those people who are living you find sometimes dead. Strange land, the land of fantasy and the land of poetry. Is it not quite like the stream in its subtle body on the mountains, where it is in the land of poetry and fantasy? After the after the dreaming experience, passing through the mountains as it were in your second stage, you come down to the plains. You wake up. In your wakeful state, you make up the gross body, just as the river acquires a gross body when descending upon the plains. You see, the deep sleep state is called the seed body, and the body of your dreamland is called the subtle body, and the body of your wakeful state is called the gross body. You know, when the rivers come down from the mountains and enter upon the plains, their subtle body remains just the same, but it puts upon itself a red or muddy mantle. You know, the water comes from the mountains. That fresh, pure water remains hidden in mud and in the clay and soil of the plains. There the subtle body of the river, as it was seen in the mountains, has not changed, but it is simply wearing a new clothing. It has soil of the plains. There the subtle body of the river, as it was seen in the mountains, has not changed, but it is simply wearing a new clothing. It has put on a new costume, and thus when the subtle body of the river has descended to the plains and put on a new muddy costume, we say the river is in its gross body. It was not so when the subtle body came from the seed body. Then the seed body had to melt down and produce the subtle body, and now in the wakeful state, subtle body had not to melt or change. It had simply to put on new garments, new costumes. That is what actually happens. In your wakeful state, the subtle body, that is to say the mind, the intellect, which was working in the dreamland, does not disappear. That remains the same, but these material elements, material head and material all that, these are put on as it were like costumes. And when you have to go to sleep, this material gross body is simply taken down, as it were hung upon that post, and the subtle body is divested of it. Just as when going to bed people take off their clothes, so you take it off, and only the subtle body works in your dreams. Now, what is the subtle body? It will be shown that is also material. The relation of the subtle body to the gross and the gross to the subtle will be pointed out. You know, the rivers in the winter season. The winter season is like the night usually put off their gross body, strip themselves of their gross body, and keep only the subtle body with them. That is, in this winter season, rivers are reduced in size, and the mud and clay and the red muddy vesture that they have put off, they go to sleep, as it were. Just as the rivers put off their gross body and keep subtle body only, similarly every day when you go to bed at night, your winter, you put off the gross body and keep only the subtle body. But the sun which was shining upon the seed body, the same sun shines equally upon the subtle body of the river, and the same sun which shines upon the seed body and subtle body of the river shines equally upon the gross body of the river. So dear friend, now I end this video here and will continue this lecture topic in the second video. So thanks my dear friend for watching this video with patience. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Thanks you later. Namaskar, namaskar, namaskar my